Welcome back to Beyond the Bushels. Today we're sitting down with Ethan, a fourth-generation farmer from Ohio. His path back to the farm wasn't a straight line by any means. He drove a school bus and started a custom application business to carve out his place back at the farm. Now he's all in, building on what his dad started and thinking ahead to the next generation. Glad to have you on here, Ethan. What's new with you? Grinding away, getting fungicide on?
Yeah, I just started applying some Tassel fungicide today, and I actually sit in the sprayer quite a bit. Last year started a custom application business, so I do that kind of in between planting and harvest. So I tend to live in the sprayer quite a bit over the summer months.
How's that working? Are you using a high boy?
Yeah, I have a HAGIE high boy, so I can spray anything from pre-emergence all the way to tassel corn.
What's the situation there, if you don't mind me asking? Is the custom work something you did to help make payments on the HAGIE, or you get bored during the summer?
When I graduated from college in May of 16, when I came home, I started to get some extra income with coming back into our farming operation. Started driving school bus for a couple local schools in my area. So I always knew that I was eventually going to have to quit that to farm full time. And so I was just thinking of different ways to generate some extra revenue other than just the row crop, be able to be on the farm full time and not have to be away during the day driving school bus. So I came up with that idea to start doing custom application. I do some private stuff as well, but a good portion of my acres, which allowed me to jump right into that, was I spray third-party contracts for a local chemical fertilizer company. I do all their application acres on the liquid side.
I don't know if you listen to any farm podcasts. I listen to a couple. You see those clips on social media, and one that's been popping up on my feed is farming without the bank or something. The gal was saying something like she made a comment about custom farming paying pretty decent, bringing in good income, and she said she got a lot of hate comments, and her argument was it can definitely make the equipment payments. She thought there's pretty good money in it.
The payment isn't any small payment by any means, but with the acres I'm running across, it's making all the payment and it's generating a pretty good profit. As a young guy, I'm trying to grow our farming operations. So right now I have your typical ag line, and the spraying is helping provide cash flow throughout the year, not relying just solely on the ag lines to make payments as expenses come up through the year. The extra income's gonna, to me, help with down years and things like that. And it just is a good revenue stream and is going to allow me to maybe go after some land opportunities if they arise and do some of that. So just allowed me to do multiple things, help grow my own acreage base, but then also be able to not have to drive school bus anymore. The school bus thing was mainly for the health insurances. I know a lot of farmers can have fun dealing with the health insurance side of things, of buying it for yourself, privatized, which is just outrageous and whatnot. So that was kind of one of the main driving factors behind starting that side business.
You didn't get your husband degree when you left college?
No.
One benefit of being married to somebody that works full time when you're farming, yeah, it can get expensive out of pocket, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm married with three young boys, and my wife is a stay-at-home mom. So the farm's kind of the main revenue stream, and so just doing what I can there.
Cool. I'm glad things are going well. Before we move on, it'd be cool to share with our listeners who Ethan is outside the farm. You said you graduated in 2016. Farming is a big majority of everybody we're going to have on this podcast, but
yeah,
I'm hoping you have a life outside the farm, and you hinted at it a little bit with family, but if you could fill us in.
I'm a pretty busy guy, very active in the church that my family attends. Try to do as much with that as I can. I'm also a volunteer firefighter and first responder on our small local fire department. So I'm very busy with that. Anytime there's a run, if I'm around, I try to go on that. I graduated from Ohio State in 16, so I'm a huge college football fan. So I try to get to a game in the fall. Hard with harvest sometimes, but I try to get down to Columbus and catch a football game. This last year, my father and I actually went to the Rose Bowl when Ohio State played Oregon. So that was a pretty neat experience to go out there and see that in person.
You're probably ready for them to start changing the playoff structure more often, aren't you?
Yeah, last year worked out pretty well.
I think they won the first year of the playoffs too, when it was 4 teams.
Yeah, I was there for that game when they beat Oregon then, and I was there for the second time they beat them in the Rose Bowl. So that was a lot of fun. But yeah, it is kind of hard when you got a young family just to get away and do things. So a lot of the free time is spending time with family, but then also working and doing different things with the fire department and local church that we attend. That's kind of what takes up most of my time.
Is there any time for Ethan? Is there anything you enjoy doing by yourself? Golf, hunting?
Yeah, I actually like golf quite a bit. Never got into the hunting thing, but yeah, I golfed in high school, and yeah, I don't get out as much as I would like now, but I can usually get out 3, 4 times a summers. Either go out on my own or go out with some buddies and just have a good time and relax.
The last guy I interviewed, he was on, was it Thursday? Same thing as you, pretty close, same age. He's not married with kids yet, but big into volunteer, county fair, church, local fire department. So it's interesting to see how a lot of similarities among some of these farmers.
Yeah, our local department, it's made up of, I mean, there's a good portion of the guys that are there a lot are farmers, local farmers. So it kind of works out when you have something that happens in the middle of the day. Farmers are the guys that are around during the day, can drop what you're doing in some sense and go help and do what we need to do. Kind of the same boat. There's a lot of other local farmers that are on the department.
So you said you had wife and how many kids?
3 boys, 6, 4, and a 1-year-old.
Ooh, boy. No wonder why your wife's a stay-at-home mom.
Yeah, they keep her busy, that's for sure. I'm looking forward to the labor here in a few years. Meet some rocks picked up, that's for sure.
Is your wife involved with the farm when she can? Probably hands full with the kids, but bringing the kids out and stuff like that, or just too much to handle right now?
Yeah, the boys, they enjoy riding on tractors and whatnot. So yeah, when we're in busy season and whatnot, she's usually bringing them out to the fields every now and then so they can ride and see everything. And Dad and I are outside working on equipment. They come out and just playing in the shop, but she doesn't run any equipment or do anything like that. But yeah, she's got her hands full-time job when you got 3 boys that young.
Does she come from a farm background?
Yeah, she does. She grew up on a pretty good sized cattle farm and row crop. Her family still farms in the area, but yeah, so she grew up around it and from the farming background.
Did you say she grew up in the same area?
Yeah, she grew up about a 20-30 minute drive, probably about 20 miles from where I was. We didn't know each other in high school or anything, but met after high school and whatnot. So yeah.
In college?
It was after I got back from college.
Really?
Yeah, we got married in 2018. So it was when I got back from college is when we met.
Life's pretty funny. You think now that we're out of school, I'm 37 in September, everything seems so small, but looking back now, after hearing that story, high school is the exact opposite. Everything is so big. You mentioned she lived 20 minutes away and you didn't know her until you got out of college. And you're probably looking back like, how was she right there? And I never met her until after I got out of college. What about siblings? Are you the only boy helping back at the farm?
Yeah, yep. I'm the oldest. I've got 2 younger sisters. One sister, she is a teacher over kind of Eastern Ohio. And then my other sister, she's Eastern Ohio as well and works in a marketing department for a company. They both moved that way, went there for college, and then decided to stick around in the area. But yeah, just me and my dad kind of the full time. Then we got a part-time guy that helps run tillage in the fall and spring and does some other odd-end jobs. And my mom, she and my dad worked full-time together farming in my childhood years. And when I came back, she kind of got an off-farm job and kind of helped make room for me coming back. But she still helps drive combine every once in a while in the fall when we need her to.
Sounds like your dad's succession planning was probably a little bit easier than what you're going to have to go through.
Yeah, luckily I got a little bit of time before I could think about that. It makes it a little bit easier when you're the only one that was interested in coming back. I know not everybody else's situation's like that. Be a little bit more tricky for other people.
Yeah. I want to touch a little bit on this custom spraying, and not in the sense of why you're doing it. We kind of already talked about that a little bit, but is that something you and your dad talked through in order? Well, I guess you started off with the school bus, but what were some of the conversations like there? Because you see a lot of that now where it's hard to bring somebody back after college to the farm, and it happens a lot now. but most of the time they have to add on entities or do something different. Like your mom had to take a full-time job to allow you to come back, and you had to start driving school bus. So how was that conversation with your dad? Did he help bring everything together?
Yeah, I mean, it was more of a conversation with both my parents in a sense, because my mom, she did and still does a lot of the finance bookwork type of stuff. And then my dad, he's very good farm operator, mechanically inclined, very good with those type of things and just the every day-to-day things that come with running an operation. So him and my mom really were a great team growing up and being able to watch them. I've always been very self-motivated to try to look at the next thing, see what I can do to improve things and whatnot. Because we actually, growing up, we did tile drainage on the side as like a side business in the summertime. We never did it year round, but it was more of a, after you guys got their weed off, their winter weed off, we did a lot of tiling. And my dad kind of starting to get more closer to the retirement age. So he started slowing down a little bit. And I just wanted to try to figure out a way that I could be able to get back to the farm full time. It worked out just that we were slowing down a little bit on the tiling side of things. And I had this idea for the custom application that it worked pretty well, that as one thing was kind of slowing down or coming to an end, I was able to bring the spraying into the fold and get that as more of a next side venture that the farm participated in.
Was the HAGIE on the farm already, or do you purchase one as a part of this new venture?
No, I purchased that. We had a 4710 John Deere, like a little bit older, early 2000 sprayers that we shared with a neighbor, and both of us used the same sprayer. So when I started this, I wanted to be able to have that ability to spray tassel corn, get more weight to spray different things. So that was the reason for going with the HAGIE, was just to have that option to be spraying tall crop.
You have any restrictions what people hire you for? Are you putting any 32% through that bad boy?
A lot of guys do 28% around here. Even on our own farm, we use 28 as the carrier when we're spraying pre-emergence on our corn. We'll put an in-furrow down in the seed trench when we're planting corn, then we'll come back with 15 gallons of 28 as the carrier with our pre-emergence pass on the corn.
You got to upcharge, man. You got to have those cleaning fees. That stuff gets kind of nasty, doesn't it?
Yeah, I was running the power washer quite a bit in the spring just to wash stuff off, just to try to keep it cleaner.
My brother, he doesn't have a sprayer that nice, but he has like a mid-90s Terragator, and he puts some sort of vehicle protectant oil because, yeah, that stuff gets nasty. It's not like starter where it just corrodes everything, is it? As long as you wash it soon enough.
If you get it washed off, it's really not bad at all. I mean, there's still a little bit of rusting. You're not going to get it perfect, but for the most part, taking power washer to it works out, gets it all off.
Any wide drop application, or are you too busy at fungicide by the time maybe people don't do it in that area?
Yeah, there's some guys that'll do it, but it's not a major thing that guys will come in and wide drop in when the corn's kind of going through the pollination stage. I know of a few guys that do it here and there, but it's nothing that I've been approached wondering if I would be able to do that. So that's not something currently that I offer with the custom application.
Looking back, I don't know if that really ever picked up as much steam as they thought it was going to, that late application of nitrogen.
For us, we've been incorporating chicken litter for the last few years. I would say going back 4 or 5 years. We'll spread chicken litter in the fall after bean crop comes off. And then we factor that we can easily get 50 pounds of organic N carryover. So we're only applying about 150 pounds in season. I think we just have gotten so busy that a lot of guys just, I don't think in our area, they really thought that was a necessary thing to really start. So we're coming in on the corn, not anywhere from V2 to V5. The side dress, we get 4 different nitrogen passes if you include the litter, the 28% at pre-merge, and then side dress and whatnot. And then we also get a little bit of nitrogen in our starter.
What's the advantage of anhydrous over 28%? Is it more cost effective?
Yeah, I think tends to be, for the most part, cheaper than 28. And I guess I've never really thought about switching. That's what our farm has used ever since. So it's kind of the system I've grown up with and we keep going with. I know they're starting to get a little bit more popular. I see a lot more guys moving to the 28. I think some of it might just be the safety factor as well, just dealing with the liquid instead of the gas.
The reason I ask is Nothing wrong with anhydrous. It might be better than 28%. I was just surprised that you said that when you were talking about doing your pre with 28%. So you already have it. I don't know. Maybe you don't have a bulk tank on your farm. Some guys will put on fall anhydrous and they think they're good for the whole year, and they probably are. But one, that stuff scares me. And how do you know it's still there?
I think they probably are using a nitrogen stabilizer in with that, I'm sure. Guys that'll do a little bit, some of the bigger farmers, I think more try to get some out in the spring before they plant the corn. They'll try to get out there if time allows, weather allows it, to get some on the ground and do it that way. For the most part, everything's side dress around here, whether it's 28% or anhydrous. There's a few guys that'll do urea as well.
I think it's localized too, because up in our area, everybody side dresses with 28 or 32%. You get down to southern Iowa, everybody is anhydrous.
It's kind of really a mixed bag around here in my area locally. I would say somewhat 50-50 just from driving by, seeing what guys are using.
So I'm guessing if you're a local firefighter, you got a pretty good mass set up to switch tanks out.
Yeah, I had a little bit of an incident a couple of years back with anhydrous that after that I increased the safety protocol and what we follow with having a better mask in the tractor and whatnot.
What happened, if you don't mind me asking?
I was just side dressing. It was earlier in the morning and going through the field, and one of the valves on tank snapped in half, and there wasn't any safety valve on the anhydrous tank. So it was coming out right at me, no wind really to be able to turn into the wind and keep it away. In the end, had to end up kind of bailing out, and luckily was able to get out of that. After that, we have a pretty good mask in the tractor that we keep with us, so able to breathe, and it's a lot safer.
Is that stuff as dangerous as they say it is? Because from farm safety, it's like you get anywhere close to that, it'll suck all the moisture out of your eyes. But the more stories I hear, the more I think that you really need to be exposed to get that bad. But maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, it takes all the oxygen away as well. While I was going through that, it was, very hard to breathe. You just are closing your eyes most of the time because your eyes are watering so bad. But yeah, definitely take all the oxygen away for sure. If you're really in a cloud, it's not going to take long for it to knock you out.
Yeah, I guess I wasn't saying it was not dangerous, but I guess I was under the impression if you got a good whiff of it, it'd do that stuff. But it sounds like you need to be in the cloud. But regardless, safety precaution.
Yeah, I mean, you get a good whiff of it. It'll clear your sinuses out pretty easily, but
Does it?
yeah.
Where's your dad at in the farm right now? Close to retiring?
Yeah, I wouldn't say, I guess that probably is a little bit of a stretch, more of a managerial or more of a financial retiree. I don't think there's going to be much.
They never retire.
Not ever retire, but we joke around. It's more of a semi-retirement where he tends to do more of the stuff that he wants to do. Like a lot more of the workload falls to me, which is what I would want as the young guy and son trying to take things over and whatnot. He likes spending a lot of time out in shop. Even before we started the custom application stuff, I would be doing a lot of spraying in the summertime, and he likes to wrench on things. And he's actually right now getting our ditching machine ready to go because we got 30-40 acres of our own ground that we got to pile yet this summer before harvest starts. He just kind of moves at more at the pace he wants to, but a lot of the more managerial decision making, getting stuff organized, that kind of stuff is all on to me over the last couple of years as we transitioned from the farm, from my dad running it more to me taking over that managerial.
Farming's fun. It's the headache of making decisions and stuff like that. Everybody loves running the combine. It's just a lot more fun when you don't have to worry about how much your checking account's going to bounce back.
Yeah, it's nice to still do what you like, but also slow down at the time, not have to work those hours that you normally have to when you're the younger one in the operation doing everything.
How old is he?
He will be 63 this December.
Okay.
So I've been lucky, probably would say, from just what I hear, listening to other farm podcasts and talking to other people, that I would say I'm one of the fortunate ones that my parents have kind of earlier in their careers started allowing me to come in and take over that managerial role and start pushing some more acres every couple of years over for me of the operation so I can start my own farming journey earlier in my career, because I hear the stories where the dad or grandpa doesn't want to give up control and they're going in their mid 70s, pushing 80 sometimes, and the sons, daughters, like in their mid 50s, late 50s, and just then starting to be able to run the farm on their own or run it how they see fit. That's been one of the blessings I think I have, is just being able to have parents that are wanting to and allowing me to kind of take it over at the age I am and not holding on to that control of the farm later in life.
Yeah, that's a great point. I've seen it firsthand. I think it's control, and it's hard to give up that mindset. So I never did ask you, what generation farmer are you?
I would be technically fourth generation.
So you've built this farm up over so many generations. What's the way to give the farm the best chance of success in the future, and it isn't making all the decisions until the next person is 55 years old and doesn't know how to make decisions yet? At least with your situation, if you do a boneheaded move, your dad can probably still have the conversation with you. Oh, I would have done this or this.
Yeah, and having my own acres, we farm everything as one operation, but I have my set of books for the acres I run, and then my parents have their own set. So we have things separated, but it's still all one family operation. I always like to test different things, agronomy, different products, foliar feed, stuff like that, where I can run some tests across my acres and then be able to see what works, doesn't work, stuff like that. But even when I came back from the farm and I was working as a hourly wage salary position, however you want to look at it, we had meetings quite a bit the first year or two coming back, which was kind of like, we want to have you take control over these couple of things, kind of like giving me the lead on a few things, but still not having complete control over everything. A lot of I did was more the agronomy practices when I came back from college. So them doing that allowed me to take ownership of a certain aspect of the farm and not just telling me, hey, you got to do that. Like, no, I don't want to hear your opinion. Like, it was very open communication, dialect, and really, I think was a good, healthy way for somebody to come back into a family farm operation.
Yeah, you hear stories of the next generation not being able to make their decisions until the previous generation passes away. Can you imagine how tough that would be? Not having to go through it with somebody to give you some guidance as a mentor?
Yeah. And I think if your whole farming career is going to be made up of the decisions that somebody else made, like running a business a certain way, like maybe going and buying the ground that you shouldn't have really bought and puts the farm at a disadvantage financially and whatnot. But I think the biggest thing is just to have good communication between everybody. I think as long as people know that they're being heard or opinions being heard, that as long as you have good communication, I think that the key to making the farming transition work really well.
I think that's same for any farm operation, not necessarily just a transition. Hired help, you're farming with your brother, you're partnered with your dad. That communication factor goes a long ways.
Yep, for sure.
You mentioned your fourth generation. How good are you with the history?
My great grandpa, they moved into the area. I believe it would have been in the mid 50s, the late 50s. And then my grandpa, he was in high school when they moved down into Ohio from Michigan. And my grandpa was the one that really grew the farm from a smaller farm to, and then when my parents took over, they really took it to the next level and increased the acreage and kept things going. And I guess I'm at the point now where I'm trying to do the same thing and try to grow as much as I can. Don't want to get too big, but also I think there's room for growth too.
Yeah, I'm not going to give you advice, but you got 3 young boys, so might have 3 mouths to feed if they all want to come back to the farm.
Yeah, that's definitely something that I think about. I'm not going to lie. I've got a few years to see what their interests are and whatnot. Hopefully, at least one of them wants to come back and farm. That would be the goal, I think, of any dad that's farming, is to have somebody come back and farm with them and take it over. But definitely see what each of their interests are and what they decide to do later in life.
You in a similar boat to your kids, where when you were at the farm as a kid, was your grandpa still around?
For a little bit, he passed away when I was in first, second grade. So I still have memories riding with him in the combine and doing stuff with him around the farm. But my parents got thrust into running the farm early on. I think they're in their late 20s, early 30s, around my age, when my grandparents passed away. And so that was quite the experience for them, taking on that big of a task to keep the farm going and being able to grow it to what it was now is very good testament of what my parents went through to get it to that point.
Yeah, that's interesting. I was in the same boat. My dad was the youngest of 10 kids. So my grandpa was clear off the farm before I was born, and he was never running equipment, or if he did, it was driving a tractor in the parade. But seeing my brother's kids, he'd be 37, 38. His kids are probably 13, 6, 3, or something like that. And my dad's out at the farm every day, and they're just following him around. That'd probably be pretty fun. I'm sure your kids enjoy spending time with Grandpa, don't they?
But yeah, they're in the shop quite a bit, and they'll be sitting right beside him or grab their own little toolbox and whatever he's working on. They're pretending to be fixing the tractors and whatnot.
Probably plenty of snacks too, right?
Yeah, they always think that whenever it's shop time, snacks always got to be included in that.
He probably spoils them a little bit more than you do at home, doesn't he?
I'm usually not the fun one, I guess. I'm always making sure we're not doing something.
And I don't know what it is about once dads turn into granddads that they loosen up quite a bit, don't they?
Yeah, I would agree with that statement.
Going back to riding in the combine with your grandpa, what are some other memories you have, some of the earlier memories you had at the farm?
My grandma worked at a local bakery, and so she always would bring cookies home and whatnot. So I remember whenever I get to ride with my grandpa, he'd always have usually a dozen sugar cookies, a small cooler with 3 caffeine regular, and then 3 caffeine-free Pepsi, and then planter cashews. And that would be what would be in the combine and tractors all the time. I would just remember going in there and mowing through cookies and pop and cashews with my grandpa and whatnot. So that's probably my fondest memory, doing that with him.
Do you remember the part on the first episode when Laura's talking about her grandkids riding the combine? The first thing they do when they get in, they point to the cooler.
Yeah, my kids think it's a bad day when they're in the combine riding with anybody and there's not snacks there for them.
What do you do to keep them occupied? Just let them take a nap or give them the phone to play with? Because they get bored pretty easy.
Yeah, they usually tend to take a pretty good nap, depending on what we're in, how rough it is or whatnot. But yeah, nap's probably number one. Right now, they usually last about an hour. Usually harvest time, like they're riding with me in the combine. My dad's running trucks back and forth to the home farm. I tell them that, well, I guess you got to wait until Grandpa gets back, and then you can hop in the truck and go back with him then.
Your dad must not be retired yet if he's the one hauling grain back and forth.
Yeah, he enjoys it. With my grandparents passing away when my parents were young, my mom was thrust into the farming side of things, running equipment. So she learned how to drive the combine, and then my dad would run the semi trucks back and forth to our grain setup at our farm. So he used to being the one in the semi truck, but we switch off during the day. I'll go home, have a bite to eat, stuff like that. We usually don't sit in one job all day, every day. We switch off back and forth between running trucks and running the combine.
Which job would you prefer?
I like running the combine. I just like looking at the yield monitor and comparing. So I just like watching the yield map and trying to see if I can see anything on that while I'm running, doing analysis and stuff like that. So,
Man, I think that's probably the easiest job on the farm in terms of all your operations out in the field. Planting, you got to have everything just right. You got to be constantly monitoring depth, keeping track of hybrid spraying. God knows what could go wrong. Anhydrous combine is where everything comes together. You might be disappointed. You might be ecstatic, but you sit there and just relax.
yeah, I would say once you get the combine set where you want to, I guess the only thing you got to worry about is not running into something and picking up rocks as you go. I want to run a rock through the combine. That's never a good day. But yeah, I would agree with that statement.
I was going to bring this up when you're talking about your kids. The buddy seat they probably have to sit in is a little bit better than what we had growing up, isn't it?
Yeah, most of the equipment that we have has a pretty good buddy seat. We still got some older tractors that when I was riding in them didn't have one, but I know one tractor. When I got kids, I took out that little side office lift thing that would be right next to the driver's seat in our John Deere 8400, and I took that out and then bought a buddy seat and mounted it in there. So like, well, if I'm going to have kids out here with me, I probably should have a good seat so you can buckle them up and whatnot.
I think my brother did the same thing. You're talking about that little, just, it could work a seat, but it's got a cup holder. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, I think John Deere called it like their little office thing, folds up, and that's where you put all your manuals and whatnot. Well, center compartment in a vehicle. I was going to take those off and buy like an aftermarket buddy seat and mounted in there.
What kind of tractor did you ride in growing up?
Our oldest tractor was a little Ford 5000. That was the first tractor I got to really drive. That was more of just pulling wagons around the farmyard, pulling ditch banks and whatnot. Main tractor was a 8760 four-wheel drive. That was kind of like our main tillage tractor.
That's what we pack our bunker with right now.
And then we had an 8100, is kind of what our planting tractors. My grandpa, the last tractor he purchased was a 9400P two-track tractor, 2001 model. But that's what he used to pull the tile plow in the summertime when we were putting field drainage in.
You remember when the case tractors were white?
No, I don't remember that. We've always been completely John Deere, so I never really paid attention to the case stuff. But
We're all John Deere now, but when I was a kid, it was all case. They were white back then. I think it was before International and is the old quad shift. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Within each of those 4 gears, you had, I can't remember if reverse was there, but you'd go and then kind of a power shift. And I remember sitting in the side seat. And by side seat is just take the armrest, push the button down so it's even with the other seat. And you'd be going, and the old man would be like, okay, we're shifting. Your head hits the back window. And I still remember the first time driving the full-size tractor. But to go in the gears 1 through 4, you got to push the clutch in. So I'm out there raking hay or chopping stalks. And like, okay, I'm in second gear. I need to go into 2, 3. And I'd keep wanting to push the clutch in. I'm like, why isn't it shifted? Of course, there's no cell phones back there. So my dad probably got out to the field drive. Like, why isn't he moving? So we had to drive the truck out there.
yeah, plenty of memories driving tractors. When you're young, seems like the only thing you want to do. That's my oldest son. He's 6, and that's what he's been chatting me up here the last couple weeks. It seems like anything that he sees, can I drive that? Can I drive that? And I'm like, no, you're a little young yet to driving stuff, so you're going to have to wait a couple years.
You got a Ranger on the farm?
Oh, we have a gator, like an older gator.
Man, kids love those.
Oh, yeah. My parents got the boys one of those like little toy gators, so they drive that all around the drain system and drives and whatnot. So, yeah, they get good use out of that.
My second oldest nephew is kind of dangerous on the farm as much as he wanted to be in the tractor. If my brother wasn't close enough and a tractor was driving in the yard, he'd run after it like, let me in, man.
That's always the worry when you're moving stuff. You just got to take a extra couple looks to make sure they're not doing something they're not supposed to or getting in the area where trying to get in and whatnot. So as a dad, that's always a worry when they're out there with you.
Do you have backup cameras on a lot of your equipment?
A couple of them have it. Some of the newer stuff, like bean planter, I put a camera on. The sprayer's got a backup camera. Our equipment age kind of ranges quite a bit. Our oldest tractor that we really use is like a 95 8400 and all the way up to a newer HAGIE and newer quad track. We usually tend to keep stuff around a lot longer, just to try to work on it ourselves and do that.
I think I covered on this already, or you did. It was a steady transition, and you're probably still in the transition process, right? It wasn't just like your dad or your parents were. It's like, oh, you're making all the decisions. See ya. It's a slow process, right?
Yeah, we've come up with a multi-year plan to slowly work some of the acres over into my side of things. And I'm happy that we've done it that way, because I don't think it would be the best to be all of a sudden thrust into it and make decisions, dip your toe into things as you go, have a little bit of a safety net there, make decisions. There's definitely been stuff that I've done that's like looking back on, like, won't be doing that again. Nothing major or anything, but just learning from your mistakes and having parents as mentors there to help you go through it and see what works, what doesn't work. And
What were some of those mistakes?
I can't even think of, the one thing I've done is I had a mishap with the sprayer, and I bought the replacement part thinking that I was going to need to put the new part on. Come to find out the shields or whatever weren't bent up like I thought they were. So it was like one of those special order things. So now you got to pay that restocking fee. So that's going to be a little tough pill to swallow, but just stuff like that where the rush jumped in like, oh, I got to get this order right now. And it's like, oh, if I would have just taken a little bit to look at it, I could have ordered those parts. Farmers out there know certain parts you order, you better use them, or that restocking fee is not the most fun thing to pay.
You ever see the McBee brothers?
Oh, yeah, I've seen that show.
You leased a farm without telling me?
Yeah, I would say that's one of my guilty pleasure shows, as people say, is watching that. It's entertaining, I guess, and things are done a little bit different than how we run things, but to each their own, I guess. I'm good with not having somebody follow me around with a camera.
Is that stuff legit? I haven't seen the show, but I remember when there's an Iowa native on The Bachelor. You see pictures of him out in the bean field with a scoop shovel in a bean field that's flowering. Just didn't make sense. Is that kind of how the show is?
Yeah, I would say it's a lot more drama than farming. I would put it that way.
That's what the viewers want to see, man. They don't want to learn how to farm.
Yeah, a lot more drama side of things than more of your typical reality TV than what the day-to-day stuff is on the farm. I would say that people think farming, it's more the cows and pasture and the romanticizing, just like a more of a storybook atmosphere, but it's a lot more cutthroat and business minded than what I would think the average person off the street that doesn't know much about farming, what actually goes on. It's a lot more cutthroat and kind of stuff like that than what people probably realize. One thing I've learned over the last couple of years is, yes, I want to grow the operation and get more acres, but you got to be content with where you're at now and do the best job you can with the acres you have. Don't want to put yourself in a business position that hurts you just to gain more ground, I guess. You got to make sure that it makes sense, because farming is a business and it's your livelihood, but you got to make sure that the money actually makes sense when you're investing in different side businesses or going after more ground or anything like that. One thing I've worked on is more slowing down a little bit. When I got back from college, it was like, go, go, go. Work on patience and whatnot, but just trying to slow things down, make sure I'm taking my time with things and just being content with what you have and do the best job you can with the ground you have. But yeah, there's many different ways to farm and grow, and everybody has their own idea of what they think the best way is with that.
I've heard of a guy, his neighbor had always planted Roundup Ready corn, and he wanted this farm. I don't know if this is all through the grapevine. So he planted the outside 24 rows of conventional corn, so the neighbor would ding it and he would sue him to buy that farm.
There's guys in my area that there's guys big that are really nice, give you the shirt off their back, and then there's other guys that'll probably would go along into that category. I think when you get big enough, you're just used to everything just going your way. Just open up the checkbook and get your way pretty much on anything you want.
Yeah.
Well, we don't really have around here guys like Stein branded beans. I know a lot of them have like the Enlist or Stein genetics in it, but like field signs of Stein soybeans or whatever, that's not really big in Northwest Ohio. I would say 80% of the guys around are Pioneer, some Golden Harvest, and that's about it. There's a little bit of Asgrow, some DeKalb. You'll see a little bit of DeKalb, but for the most part, it's Pioneer. Pioneer, Bex, and Golden Harvest dominate the area.
How long has Bex been in the area?
I'm sure it's longer than what I know, but from just paying attention, I would say a good 10 years. But I just didn't really pay attention to in high school or whatnot. You just pay attention to when I got back full time.
That's probably pretty accurate. That's about the time when they came into Iowa. I don't know the background there. If they're mostly Indiana for the longest time and just decided to grow, or what the deal was. Because they've been around forever and they just recently started spreading out 10 years ago, 15 years ago.
I would say they probably have gotten big ever since they did their rewards program. I don't know how long that's been around, but I would say when that took off, that's probably what really made their business grow.
Are you doing that?
No, we don't do that. We grow good portion Pioneer, good portion Golden Harvest is what we grow. I think a lot of the stuff is like Pioneer genetics, DuPont, Corteva. From what I understand, Pioneer will pick out the genetics variety that work nationwide, and then Bex will take the stuff that Pioneer doesn't want per se. It's more regional, and then they'll focus on that and do more of the smaller regional stuff. So Pioneer focuses on something that you can throw corn variety in Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, Iowa, more of a broadcast that works that way. And then some of the side stuff is more like, well, they work great in Northwest Ohio, but not so great in Western Central Illinois type of thing. I think that's what they use to come up with their varieties, from what I understand.
I worked at Corteva doing research and development You explained exactly right what their methodology was at Pioneer. They look across the zone all the way across. I guess I didn't really catch how they were doing that, but a lot of their hybrids too will stretch across big areas.
Yeah. When you're that big, you don't have the manpower and money to put in to try to pick 50 varieties that work in the little parts of the maturity zone. Because I mean, we plant anywhere from like 100-day to 112-day corn in our area, and then soybeans 2.2 to a 3.4 is about late maturity that we get. So they're going to want to make sure that maturity works all the way across instead of just in the little pockets of the country.
You must be in zone 5 then.
You know what? I really don't know. I've never looked at the zone or whatnot, but
Zone 5 would be like the top half of Iowa, and I imagine it runs across. I'm not good at geography to know if Ohio's a little bit south of Iowa or
yeah, I think it might be a little bit, but I'm pretty sure like the top of Illinois, Indiana, and Ohio, the northern borders are all pretty much a straight line.
yeah, you must be zone 5 because where I grew up is in between 4 and 5, and we were playing 97 to 102, and we just recently switched where we're getting a little more ballsy and going to 105, 108. Then Southern Iowa, that'd be maybe Iowa's got 4, 5, 6, and 7 because Southern Iowa's pretty sure 7, and that's you get into some 112 to 117.
Yeah, the latest maturity we planted is up 113. That's the latest that we've ever done. We've never gone later than that.
Was it dry when you took it out?
I'm sure it wasn't. Usually an average harvest that we're taking corn off, I would say if we can keep it right around 19, 20, 21, that's pretty good. This last year, a lot of stuff came out at 15, 14 and a half. That was a really dry harvest, but low 20s is pretty average nowadays for average year taking off moisture.
Has there been any trends with soybean harvests lately? I've noticed maybe it's just our area where it's really hard to get them at that 13% moisture. And to do it, you got to harvest them with a lot of green still on the stems. And by the time you get to them, it's 11% moisture on them.
Yeah, I think most moisture we try to put them in the bin is maybe 14, 14 and a half. If we know it's going to be a dry day, we'll maybe throw a load of 15 in there. But by the end of the day, like you said, it's down to 12, 12 and a half, 13. I think the green stem, from what I've heard, is that a lot of that is from fungicide. That's what we've seen because we've been putting fungicide on bean pretty much across all our acres for the last 3-4 years. We're seeing a yield bump in it for sure, so it pays, but having that green stem issue where I think that fungicide is just keeping that plant healthier longer, and it's just taking it longer to completely dry down. But yeah, you look out in the field and you just see green, but then you go in the pods and the pods are perfectly dry and the soybeans are coming out at the right moisture. Yeah, you get in those pockets that thrashes a little bit harder.
When I was talking about combining and being the funnest job on the farm, maybe I should have been more specific and talked about corn combine. Bean can be rough. It's not bad when you have the GPS now, but man, if you didn't have the GPS, you got to watch what you're doing.
Our combines, we don't have auto steer. We have auto steer on, I think, pretty much about everything else, but we don't have it on our combine.
The combine and beans probably isn't that fun then.
Yeah, a long day or whatever. At the end of the day, your eyes are pretty tired trying to focus and stare, keeping it straight. I like it. Any combine for me is fun.
So we probably got off track there a little bit, but back to the farming legacy. You said you've made some decisions that you won't make again. Was there ever a time where maybe things weren't that great? You started in 2017. I don't know if it's really been that bad since then, but any point in time where you're like, what the heck am I doing this for?
The first year that I had a Schedule F that officially was farming was 2019. So I'll always remember that year because at least in our neck of the woods, I would say probably good 70, 80% of the ground in our surrounding counties was prevent plant. I think we finished planting soybeans June 28th. And with our acres, we're usually about 700 acres of corn. And I think we put out 163 that year. We ended up getting pretty much all our beans in for the most part. We had another 300 acres or so that we could have gotten, but being so late, we increased our population so much that we just ran out of the soybeans that we had ordered. So we're like, well, we're not going to go buy more soybeans to keep going with planting these June 28th or whatnot. So that was my first year farming. So that was quite the interesting year. Like I haven't had that moment of second guessing it or like, what am I getting myself into? I had that more in high school. In high school, I didn't know for sure whether I wanted to come back and farm. I wasn't one that knew what I wanted to do my whole life. And I had thrown around some other ideas of things that I was interested in and thought I might do. But in the end, kind of decided that's what I wanted to go to college for and come back to the family farm. So being back, I never had that like, boy, do I really want to do this? I more had that conversation with myself earlier in high school, made a decision whether I wanted to go that route or if I wanted to go a different route.
So you knew you were going to farm full time when you went to college?
Yeah, that was the end goal. I thought about maybe for a couple years getting a job somewhere else, just maybe go off for a couple years, but come back then. But yeah, once I was in college, I knew the end game was to come back to the family farm.
Yeah, I'm just curious. You see a lot of people that know they're going to go to the farm full time and still go to college. I wasn't in that situation. I didn't know if it was the parents promoting that or if the kid just wanted to get out and party for 4 years.
My mom was a big proponent of going to college, get education. I went to a satellite campus of Ohio State where I got a 2-year associate's degree, and then I ended up going to main campus to be able to get a 4-year degree. So in that moment, I thought a 4-year degree would almost be like a insurance policy. Like I've got the piece of paper. So like if something ever happened, I had that 4-year degree leaning back on, but never was the idea to like go off and get a job and have a all farm job for years. It was always in the end, come back and take over the family farm.
Has your view of farming changed at all since being that pre-college farm kid, high schooler, to where you are now? Still a bit tougher than what you think?
I don't know if I would say tougher, but there's just a lot more to worry about. Growing up, farming was more the, well, you just go out, wrench on things, run the equipment. But coming back as I was in college and then me and my mom talking business a lot more and looking at the books, farming, I think now knowing your numbers, like you can go out there and you can work 10, 12, 14-hour days all you want and just bury your head in the sand when it comes to the crops out in the field. But if you don't spend a good amount of time in the office, knowing your numbers and stuff like that, you can get into some trouble that way. And that was the biggest thing I learned 30, 40 years ago. Farming, you really didn't have to worry about that, I don't think. But nowadays, with the price of equipment, the grain market volatility, just keeping organized and knowing your numbers, it makes all the difference in the world. I think when you're looking at what you would consider a successful farming operation, farm business versus one that's not as successful. So I think that's the big thing nowadays. And I got that sense when I was in high school, that was the way farming was going. I guess a little bit more white collar mixed into farming than what you thought growing up.
And it's really challenging because I won't just say specific generations. They're used to not having to sit at the desk and crunch numbers all the time. And it's hard to get them at the computer now. They didn't grow up on computers. They don't want to sit at a desk. But you probably have to spend a fair amount of time each week going through computer stuff, financials, crop planning, field records.
Yeah, there's a lot more to it, a lot more documentation of everything. It seems like there's a lot more information to know about the same stuff. We all plant, spray the crops, and we harvest the crops, but there's a lot more that goes into that now than even 15, 20 years ago. Everything changed, I would say, right around late 2000s. Like my mom, she's a really good business mind. And so she actually did the first year of TPAP when I was in high school. I don't know if you've heard of that or know what that is. It's like an MBA for farmers, but it's all condensed down into a week. And there's multi-years. You can do the first year, then you can come back and do the second year. But it's more of a MBA type level course, but it's like a crash course and some university professors put it on. And I think some of that, the reason that you have to be so knowing your numbers is that the farm sizes are just getting bigger. There's just a lot more to manage and a lot more money coming in and going out when you're running 2,000, 3,000, 10,000 acre farms that you almost have to have somebody dedicated to that or have to be on top of that to make that size of an operation work. It's not just 500 acres, something smaller like what everybody was 20, 30 years ago. Just as everybody knows, there's less and less number of farms out there, and they're just getting swallowed up in bigger farms.
How much time do you think you spend a week at your computer? Not just financials, but field records. You said you're going to pull out the tile tool. You might have to do some planning there. How much time a week do you spend on a computer?
I would say probably 4 or 5 hours a week. I would think, but every other couple of weeks there, I'm really busy with the spraying and whatnot. So I have to make sure I take time to be in the office and do that managerial stuff. But those are usually the rainy days when you can spend, but for a couple of weeks, I'll spend pretty much a whole day in the office, get things organized, because I'll go through and just get the bills paid, do some of the light work, but then I always need to come back and just organize everything, make sure things are filed in the right spot, and just make sure checking account balance, just stuff like that, where you can in a couple hours knock out the easy stuff, but then coming back and diving deep, making sure things are organized better and stuff like that. We were using Easy Farm, and then as the accounting side of things, and then I would use QuickBooks for the invoicing side of things for the spray business, and then Harvest Profit, I use that to do the profit and loss reports, knowing the numbers on a farm field by field basis instead of just overall. I would punch in, get the numbers organized, and know how much seed costs on this field, what the chemical costs, and get a profit and loss of how much I made on that one specific field each year, and not just as a whole farm thing. It was breaking it down and getting it down to a field by field basis. So kind of use 3 different programs. Traction allowed me to bring everything into one system. I can do my invoicing, I can do the profit and loss, and then I got my just basic paying bills, accounting, account register, and stuff like that.
If you're doing the custom spraying, are you using the land agreements?
I don't think I've jumped into that on the spraying side of things.
Maybe it's not that beneficial because you're working with a co-op, but you're not buying the chemicals and then the landowner's having to pay you back, are they?
No, I don't have it set up that way. Even the guys that I spray just through me, they will go buy whatever chemicals they decide to through whatever co-op or chemical fertilizer rep that they prefer.
How does that work for tank mixing? Because it'd be a lot more stress-free if you had all the chemicals, you had your own tanker trucks and stuff like that, but having to deal with that.
The main chemical, like you got like soybeans, Liberty, List, and Roundup. So whether that is named something because it's Syngenta product or BASF, it's all the same active ingredient. So I really don't worry about it. Like, I'm spraying soybeans. If I know it's like, oh, these are replenished beans, I just make sure I just clean out really well. Personally, I just take like an extra 30 minutes just to make sure I clean that sprayer out good, because I'm like, another 30 minutes of messing around with that is going to save me so many headaches than to get a call from some guy because I nuked his field because I didn't get the sprayer cleaned out well enough.
So are they bringing you water every time you run out, or do you just use your own tanker?
I have my own tender trailer set up. A lot of the guys that I spray for, they're like a few miles away. So like they'll bring me their product to my barn. And then when they tell me it's ready to go, then I'll just load their stuff up. I don't hot mix anything really. I have water on my tender trailer and I can stack oats on my trailer, and I just pull from that and then dump the jugs in my inductor. I never really hot load. The only thing that goes into my tanks on my tender trailer is water and 28.
Yeah, I guess I wasn't thinking about that. For some reason, I was thinking they're spraying, they're providing the chemicals, and they're bringing their own truck. But yeah, that doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I have my own tender. When I'm spraying for the local co-op fertilizer plant, I had it in the contract where they tender me. So they provide the tender and then I do the spraying. But when I have our own stuff or private customers, usually if I need to, my dad will hop in the truck and tender me.
Working for the co-op, spray in and be like, boys, fill me up. I gotta take a nap here 10 minutes. Let me know when you're done. It's never that easy, is it?
No, we actually use my trailer. So they hook up to my trailer. So that makes it nice because I've got a pretty good setup where if I don't have a bunch of different jugs, different products to put in, if it's only 1 or 2 shells and a couple jugs, I can usually fill up that sprayer in about 8 minutes. And then I'm back rolling. So it moves pretty quick.
What size intake hose you got?
3-inch.
That's the big boy, isn't it? A little bit tougher to manhandle those big hoses, isn't it?
Yeah, you gotta definitely put an air purge on the trailer, blow the line out so you can pull the hose a little bit better.
Yeah. Before we wrap this up, we'll roll into the best part. We're going to pass the mic. So I got a really tough question for you. And after you get done answering this question, we'll let you come up with the question for the next guest. So the question Josh asked, and maybe we already talked about this, but growing up from young to now on the farm, what are some of the biggest changes you've seen, not only at your farm, but just the farming industry in general?
I think the easiest thing that comes to my mind is just just technology in general. Even since, I guess, 2000, I would remember my dad letting me plant a field of corn. And so following the marker and making sure you're planting straight with the marker. And then to now that you've got auto path and you're putting GPS receivers on a planter to get your auto path lines, be able to come back and follow those and turn automation. I just think the technology has just been leaps and bounds in a 25-year span.
Just wait for the next 25 years, man. Technology creates technology.
Like, I just look at now, like John Deere is just coming out, starting to mess with the whole autonomy thing. Like right now, it's like, that's not going to happen. But who would have thought if you told somebody in 1990 that, hey, we're going to have it where you press a button and the tractor steers straight for you? They would have thought that was 30, 40 years off. That's going to be very interesting where technology goes, like from where we're at now and what I can remember what it is now. And then when I'm like retiring, getting close to retiring age, where we're at, if I've got a tractor that's out there working ground by itself. In the moment, it's hard to think about where things could go even further because you always think you're at the end when you're in it. But what could it be? But I'm sure there's something that's going to come down the road that's going to blow my mind when I'm later in life.
You see all these, I don't know what they're called, self-propelled units. It's big up in Canada because they have these giant fields where it's like a big planter. It'll turn sideways, then they can drop it off, then add a sprayer.
Is it called Next?
Something like that.
I think it's a German company.
Sounds about right. They're the best at everything equipment.
Yeah, Germany. The engineering in Germany.
Yeah, imagine if your grandpa were to see a drone spraying a field.
Yeah, that's the other thing. Who would have even thought, like, even in 2000, when I was a kid, who would have thought that a drone was going to be? I remember taking it hasn't happened, obviously, but I remember taking a college visit and talking to one of the professors, and the thing that he kept talking about the whole time was like that they were going to be like little robots that would go out into the fields and cut off the stem like a weed in the field and cut off a stem and then put like a drop of herbicide on the cut off area of the stem and that's how you're gonna spray your field going
They
in
have
the next
those,
like
man.
5 years. They do. I've never seen he talked about it, but ever since then I've never seen like that be used, I guess.
Not that use case scenario. Have you seen the little dog robots they have for the field? I don't know what they do, but my buddy starting a business and he has something just like that, except it's more so in timber areas or CRP where it'll have a camera and it'll identify invasive species and they'll inject them with some poison.
Okay.
So similar, just different scale. Big fields would be tough.
Yeah, that would be. I thought he was a little nuts when he was talking about that then, but that was like 2011, 2012.
Yeah. Whoever the first company that can get the extremely high resolution imagery that you get from drones from a satellite, so you can get an image of your field real time. I want to see what this field's looking like 20 miles away after the wind, and just being able to pull the satellite and see. That technology's got to be there already. It's just making it cost feasible.
I think they do have it a little bit with the thermal, like the vegetative satellite mapping, where you can get a map of how thick the density of the vegetation is. I guess you probably could technically do it that way if you got like wind damage and see stuff knocked down. You'd maybe pick it up that way.
Some of this Apple Maps imagery is really good now, but having it so good when the corn is like V1 or V2, you can zoom in enough to count the plants. It's getting closer.
I'm sure stuff like that, I'll be able to do that when I'm like 55 or something like that down the road.
I know we're dragging on here. Before we get to your question, one thing I've been meaning to ask you, it's interesting to hear about people's first GPS experience. I remember the first time I drove with GPS and what the unit was. What was the first GPS unit you started off on?
Probably be our tillage equipment. I never did really too much planning. We got GPS on all our stuff. We first put it on our planning equipment just to be able to be planning straight. But my dad did all that. When we got that, I would have been like maybe in fifth, sixth grades. My dad wasn't out there throwing me in the planting corn tractor saying, go at it. But I didn't. I started doing a lot more tillage. And I think that was the first thing is like, just, I guess, more how relaxing it was, just hopping and not having to drive straight. It was just different. It was almost like, what am I doing with my time now? Because it's like, you can only just stare ahead so much.
My dad's first GPS had that, but it was ran on a cell phone is what his GPS signal was run off of. The old PDA ones, like a little pocket computer.
Yeah, I remember the big thing when I was growing up that my dad loved was the Nextel. I'm sure a lot of farmers love that Nextel, this push to talk, those like walkie-talkie cell phones, this Nextel through Sprint. Yeah, he loved that. I remember my first cell phone had that push to talk.
Do they even have that anymore?
No, I think that went away. Yeah, that went away, I think, when I was in high school or something. I don't think it was out too long, but yeah, farmers love that Nextel push to talk stuff.
You probably never even had to have a flip phone, did you?
My first phone that my parents allowed me to carry, and I was only able to use it just to like carry a sporting event to call them like, hey, I'm done with practice or whatever. I think the first one was a Nokia, like a solid brick.
Okay. You're not that far behind me then.
I'm 31.
Okay. Gotta play Snake on those old Nokias, man. I wish I still had one. Cool. So now it's your turn for the next guest. People are probably going to lose track. What was the question that he answered? But for the next guest, we'll let you ask the question and see what they come up with.
I guess my question would be, where do you see genetics going in the future? Like, how much more can we get out of the genetics now going forward than what we do right now?
That's an interesting one.
That's my big thing of the next thing in farming. I think technology is kind of always going to be there in the background. You're going to come out like drones, like in the last 3 years, drones putting fungicide on, stuff like that. But I think the next thing to really push yield is the seed genetics, like stuff getting more pushed into like kernel size on ear corn. Like we're not moving at 24 around by 70 ear. Like I think what we are right now, like pushing more of the kernel depth and packing more into the kernel itself. And then I think drought resistance, variety, and kind of another thing is foliar feed, stuff like that. Like I think the micronutrients and seed genetics is where the next big push is, to increasing the ability of the genetics and what they can do versus what they were now. I just know from being on the farm, like what we were growing bushel wise in 2008, 2012 is just, I think we've almost raked stuff more. Like I knew what like a dry year, like what a bad year was on corn. And I feel like that floor is just like getting rate 10, 20 bushel, that even when you have the same weather event, the same dryness, I think we're raising the floor of what you're going to be able to grow.
Yeah, that's a great point. You don't really notice it when you think short term, but if you really take the time to think back 20 years, it's like if you see your kid every single day, you probably don't notice them growing. But if I were to see your kids every 6 months, like, holy crap, you grew a lot. But you just don't really notice it when you're living in the moment.
Yeah, I think that's where the technology boom is going to be. Also the foliar feeds there, and just knowing the science more behind the plant and genetics is where things are moving. Because there's so many things they have out now that throw this at that, throw that foliar at this. And there's so many different companies coming out with products now that think understanding that stuff better and coming up with a plan that fits your farm is going to be the next area that you can really push yield. Or like how I was saying earlier, knowing your numbers, spending time in the office, knowing your numbers. I think in a sense, you need to know the numbers when it comes to the science behind your fields.
Yeah, I think corn yields have increased way more than soybeans. And at least where I farm, soybeans have just stalled off top end.
I don't know if we were in a drier pattern for a good number of years. Our soybean yields have gone up, but I think a lot of that too, a lot of that maybe more of the getting the planting date moved more into planting soybeans as soon as it's dry enough to get in the field versus waiting until the corn is in the ground, then coming back and putting soybeans in.
You hear that a lot.
Yeah.
Well, cool, man. I appreciate you taking the time to join. It's
Yeah, no
always
problem.
fun getting different perspectives of farmers across the U.S. Hopefully you enjoyed yourself too.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. First being on a podcast, so yeah, it was neat.
Did it feel like a podcast?
No, not too much.
That's good. I want it to feel like we're just shooting the crap on the phone and just happen to be recording it.
Yeah. Yep. No, I had a good time. Thanks for having me.
All right, man. We'll be in touch.